So when you're doing these reviews, what makes it recommendable to you?
Great food, obviously. If you have great food, that's a good base. But does it taste good in my mouth?
Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty good one. Hey guys, Chase Christensen here with Mountain America. Welcome back to Guiding You Forward. We're here at the Silverside Deli and Sugar House, and we're here with Chase from SLC Foodie. Chase, why Silverside Deli?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite sandwich spots.
Right,
So
okay.
the guy who opened it wanted to bring like a New York bodega
Okay.
to Utah.
Yeah.
So he found this spot. It has like these amazing beams,
Yeah,
this
it's
exposed
gorgeous.
brick, like such a vibe. And what they do is they do like gourmet sandwiches. So they have like chopped cheese, of course.
Right.
Because you have to have
Naturally,
that,
have to,
right?
yeah.
But then they started doing almost like the crumble approach of sandwiches.
Oh, okay.
Where they rotate through different sandwiches every month. And the ingredients that they're like merging together are out of this world.
So something to try here. So definitely
Yes.
stop down to Silverside Deli here.
Yes.
I just wanted to start out with, so your handle on all social, right, is SLC Foodie.
Yeah, for the most part. Salt Lake Foodie on Facebook.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Why foodie? Like, why not critic? Or like, what's the difference between considering yourself a foodie as compared to maybe a critic? Because all of your social stuff is really positive. You're always just like hyping up restaurants. It's never like, oh, this was so, you know.
Yeah.
It's all hype, which I love.
All
But,
love. That's,
yeah.
yeah, 100%. Well, food critics, like I grew up reading like their beautiful articulated like paragraphs and paragraphs.
Right.
And honestly, like while I respect it, it intimidated me.
Right.
I would read and be like, oh, I can't go there. I'm just an average guy that likes to eat. I'm going to be a complete fool.
It's too swanky.
And, you know, critics have to give the positive and the negative. I wanted it to just be spots I truly love. There's enough other areas out there, you know, Yelp, Google reviews where you can find the not so good.
Right.
So if you look at my feed, it's everything I've tried and enjoyed. If I
Okay.
didn't like it, I just don't talk about it.
So when you're doing these reviews, kind of what are your main pillars for like evaluating or even recommending that? Like, what makes it recommendable to you?
Yeah.
I guess.
No, here, does it taste good in my mouth?
Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty good one.
No, so great food, obviously. If you have great food, that's a good base. But really in Utah now, you got to do a little bit more than just have good food, right?
Right, yeah.
Like in the 80s, 90s, great food, you had it.
Right.
Now you got to have great atmosphere, right?
Right.
People want to have an experience, right? Good drinks. That's something that, you know, Utah has evolved as well. You know, it isn't so much, you know, Diet Coke everywhere.
Right,
You
yeah.
have a huge variety of different drinks. And then, of course, the people.
Right.
You got to have good people, good service. You know, everyone talks about Chick-fil-A and, you know, it's
Yeah.
a pleasure, right?
Yeah.
That's like the gold standard. And a lot of like brands have really started trying to emulate that. So those are my 4 pillars.
Very cool. Would you say that Salt Lake is a particularly competitive space for food? Like compared to, I assume you've kind of traveled around and tried other places and stuff. Would you consider Salt Lake or even Utah in general to
Yeah.
be pretty competitive in that? Because you mentioned just having good food is not almost enough to differentiate yourself anymore.
100%. It's become extremely competitive, which is good, but also a little sad because,
Yeah.
you know, spots that don't adapt to that or, you know, they might have great food, but they just don't have those other pieces. Sometimes they fade away, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is a
But
bummer.
no, Utah definitely has a pretty big food scene. I travel a little bit for my day job around, the states around here. And
Right.
I tell you what, like, the closest I would say to Utah and up and coming is Boise.
Okay, yeah.
Boise's getting pretty wild
Yeah,
now.
I hear Boise's
Yeah.
blowing up.
Yeah.
Very similar to Salt Lake. And
Yes.
if housing prices are indicative of anything, that's definitely true.
Yes.
So what makes a good experience then? So
Yeah.
like if a place has good food but doesn't have that experience, like what for you
Yeah.
is the most important of the experiential side?
Well, you know, I want to not only enjoy my food, I want to have something to like look at, something that's interesting, something that like draws up conversation.
Right.
And if the restaurant doesn't have, you know, the atmosphere itself, maybe the person creates that experience,
Right.
right? They're engaging with you at the table, they're engaging with you, you know, at the register. A lot of restaurants have started doing like table side pieces. So, you know, they come to your table and instead of finishing everything in the kitchen, they'll light the cheese wheel on fire
Oh, wow,
and
yeah.
throw the pasta in there and
Yeah.
toss it in front of you, right?
Right.
You know, maybe serenade you in
Right.
Italian.
Right. Everybody likes sizzling stuff,
Yeah,
right? Like the whole
100%.
fajita platter, like
Yeah, yeah, you know, the sizzling platter coming out, that's exciting, but it's fire, smoke, dry
yeah,
ice, like,
right.
you know, like what are we gonna do to really make it a show?
Right. Maybe you can debunk this, but I heard that like the whole sizzling fajita platter thing
Yeah.
isn't even like natural like grease or whatever. Like they like spray it down to like create a scene as they're going out.
No, I've seen it. So I've been in quite a few kitchens,
Okay.
and they'll spray it with I think it's oil, maybe
Oil.
water. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they'll spray it on there at the very end and then bring it out. It isn't sizzling while they're cooking it.
That-
In fact, when they're cooking it, it's in a completely different container. It's the cast iron's just on something like a burner burning
Right, just, yeah,
essentially.
getting warm.
They transfer it over, give it a spray, and send it out.
Humans are so basic that way, right? Like that catches your attention and they're like, ooh, I want that.
Yeah.
That seems fun, right?
Yeah.
So kind of maybe something similar to that from an experiential process is that's kind of the essence of it a little bit, is just having something to look at, feeling
Yeah.
and ambiance.
They want it, you know, different than home,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you can DoorDash this food to your house.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, and watch, you know, Secret Housewives.
Yeah, but you're probably not going to go brag to your friends, right? They're like, oh, we tried the best place. We
Oh.
went to this place.
And social media's really ramped that
Mm-hmm.
up because when people are like sharing a moment, they want to share that wow moment.
Right, yeah.
And they want, you know, I think most people, they want their content to be engaged with. They want people to like it, share it, comment on it, and be like, wow, that was so amazing.
Right.
So restaurants have picked up on that. And now they're like, okay, what can we do to do something like wild?
Yeah, like attract people that way. How do you feel about like mentioning DoorDash? And obviously, you know, not to say anything negative about that, but do you feel like that technology shift has impacted restaurants, and kind of how so? Like, has that been beneficial or negative? Like, how do you feel about that? That you can just order it straight to your house. You don't have to go out for this event.
Yeah, so mixed. I think that, you know, obviously during COVID, that saved a lot of restaurants, right? I think after COVID, it's kept a lot of people inside, right? They're
Right.
not coming out. There's a restaurant downtown Salt Lake City, a Thai spot, and 70% of their sales are DoorDash.
Oh,
and it's
wow.
because they're surrounded by apartments. I thought it was
Okay.
like travelers, you know, because hotels
Right.
and that. And they're like, no, it's the big high-rise apartments. They don't want to get in their car in the parking garage, drive it across the street, grab their food, and then come back.
Right.
They'll just DoorDash it, which, you know, they pay premium for that.
Right,
And
yeah.
the restaurants, they take a pretty big cut from DoorDash.
Oh, do they?
Talking to a lot of these restaurants, it's a substantial cut. And then they
Wow.
also up the cost of the food
Right.
on the platform.
Right.
So while I think it's a good value add, I'm always in the restaurant. I probably have DoorDash maybe 10 times in my life.
Okay, fair enough. That is interesting that adds some sustainability, but you know, we have met a couple of times and we were even talking about, you know, to me it seems like dining and those experiences are kind of like one of the last like in-person watering holes, right? Like as a society, we've all kind of moved onto social media
Yeah.
and all of this remote interaction, but eating out, I feel like, is kind of one of the like last vestiges of that social interaction that we really even have.
It's like an escape, right?
Yeah.
It changes it up, right? Like eating in the same environment over and over and over, it gets boring. It just
Right.
makes it almost like I have to eat.
Right,
I'm not
yeah.
going to eat to have fun,
Right.
right? So no, I agree with you 100%.
Nice. Well, speaking of the social media stuff, let's dive into how you got started, right? So have you always been into food and like documenting it? Has it always been this, or did you just kind of hit on something and then scale it from there? Like,
Yeah.
take me back to how that all started and where you went from there.
Yeah, so I've always been a weirdo. I've always posted food pictures.
Yeah.
No, all the way back to MySpace. I was
Oh, wow.
posting things that I ate. Went on to
You
Facebook.
set your favorite song and then posted about what
Yeah,
you ate.
exactly.
All right.
I would do all the little coding and then, you know, have that food.
Yeah.
But no, Facebook, MySpace, you know, posting where I would go to eat. And me, I'm very visual. So for me, it was like a food diary. You know,
Okay.
I would be talking to someone And instead of describing it, I'd be like, oh, let me pull it up and I'll show you. Right. And that's what it was. Facebook was, friends and family. MySpace, friends and family.
Right.
But Instagram, when I started posting over there, their platform was more designed to connect with everybody. Right. Share moments real time. That was the whole purpose of Instagram.
Right. Reach a broader audience.
100%.
Okay.
So when I started posting on there, I think that, the hipster generation, we were just putting that hipster filter over everything and, just random photos. For me, I started using it as a way to catalog where I was eating. Okay. It had the ability to do these geotags.
Oh, right.
So I could be at, Silverside, right? Take a picture of a sandwich I really enjoyed, tag their location, and then there used to be a map feature.
Right.
So you could click the map feature, and if I was down the street, little bullet point, click up, oh yeah, I love that sandwich. I want to go there.
Right.
So it was for me, utility.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think anyone cared to look at what I was doing.
Right.
But then what happened was people started asking questions like, what is that? Because there's no captions, nothing.
Right.
Like, what is that? Oh,
it was just a picture of a sandwich.
Yeah, it's like, who are you? Okay. I don't know who you are, but yeah, I'd love to share this spot with you. So I started giving more detail. And it just snowballed from there.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, and obviously tagging it, geotagging it, back in the day, and this is still somewhat true, is that it makes it more likely for people in that area to see it as well. So I'm sure that helps.
I miss that feature, but it just kept on evolving. I started putting a little bit more detail. I started thinking about photography a little bit more.
Right.
I mean, I'm just like an amateur photographer, no training whatsoever. It's just been kind of trial error.
Right.
And, taking photos of food is I mean, easy now because I've done it so much, but it was extremely difficult at first.
Right,
I'd be like, that looks nothing like what I'm eating right now.
Well, you're so great too with your content. Like, it's always dynamic, right?
Oh,
it seems like that you're always focused on that there's sauce is always going on things, stuff's being dunked and stuff. That makes it like really engaging. So,
well, the whole point of the way that I create the content is when I want it to feel like you're sitting in my seat. So you know what you're going to experience. So for me, like only talking about spots I love, right? Making sure that what I'm eating is what everyone else gets, right? These are things that I stumbled on. I'd go into a restaurant and I would film content and then someone would reach out to me like 2014, 15 and be like, my steak looked completely different. I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So we've started doing incognito visits ahead of time to ensure that what we're getting is what everyone gets.
Because restaurants were pumping it up, knowing that you were coming. You had that cloud. They want to make it sure it's the best that it possibly can be.
And my whole thing is, this is like average Joe's perspective. I'm just a normal guy that loves to eat food. I want to share that with everyone. And I don't want people to be disappointed. I remember I had someone message me. They went to a steakhouse for their anniversary, and that had occurred. And that's kind of was the turning point. And I said, what is your Venmo? I'm going to send you whatever you spent on that. Because I had no idea. It didn't cross my mind that, the 16-ounce steak looked completely different over here.
When did that hit critical mass? So, like, you probably don't remember, like, the follower count you were at when it hit critical mass, but when did restaurants start reaching out to you and just soliciting you like, hey, come check out our stuff? You said that you only endorse stuff that you like really enjoy. So it sounds like it's very authentic on who you choose to endorse there. But when did that switch happen? Because I'm sure that made things a bit easier for you, right? That you're like, oh, I don't even have to find, like, they're kind of coming to me.
I no longer had to run up credit card bills right now. No, I want to say probably, so it's been 13 years, probably halfway through. I think restaurants started realizing, wow, the social media thing is very like engaging, right? And these back when I started, there was no influencers, and I cringe at that term because I'm not trying to influence. I'm not trying to influence anyone. Here's what it is: if you like it, go. If you don't, that's okay. But it was probably about 6 years into it. Restaurants would reach out and say, "Hey, we'd love for you to come in and try us out." And my response was always, I really appreciate you reaching out, but if I don't like it, I'm not going to talk about it. And, at first that was mixed, right? Restaurants kind of would get upset, but I always give constructive feedback, and, pointers and whatnot. And it's kind of like it's not you, it's me. I feel like I'm,
Yeah.
you know, like I
Yeah.
don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
But
They're giving you the Seinfeld response, like, if it's anybody, it's me.
no, but yeah, that was probably about the point that started occurring.
Okay.
But follower count, I never really paid attention to it, quite honestly.
Okay.
It wasn't until I hit 100,000 followers on Instagram
Okay.
that I really was like, what does 100,000 people look like in one room?
Oh, yeah.
And I realized
It's a pretty big
the
audience.
reach and the impact, which really made me happy that I stayed authentic. I didn't sell out. I kept to that cornerstone.
Right.
Everything that you see on the feed is, I've been there. I ate that.
Yeah.
I do all the photos. People always message me. They're like, I'm a team of people, you know, like, hey, we love you guys. It's like, oh, there's no guys.
that's
It's
me.
me.
Yeah.
It's like those videos where, you know, like, I'm the photographer, I'm the eater, I'm
Right.
the, you know, all of these things.
Doing everything.
Yeah, all in one. But I've done that on purpose because it's a passion for me.
Right.
I never wanted it to be a business or anything like that. I just want to help restaurants get the exposure they need.
Right.
Because in this day and age, you know, a lot of these spots don't have the ability to run these impressive marketing budgets, hire photographers to make their food look fake, you know?
Right, yeah, for sure.
to get you in.
It's like extremely palatable. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a competitive market now that, you know, like Red Iguana, great Mexican
Oh, yeah.
spot, right?
So good.
Really well known.
Mhm.
But they started when there was nothing else.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's easier to be one than one of 100, right?
Right.
A new Mexican spot opening today, definitely different environment.
Interesting. So
100%.
harder to cut through the noise now than
Extremely
than a while
hard.
back.
And you know, you think about like Italian food. I remember growing up, like everyone was like Olive Garden.
You're speaking my wife's language right
Okay.
now.
And you know, and the shift when like Cecilia Mia opened up, right? All of a sudden we're getting this shift, and they really broke through.
Right.
And they were kind of the forefront of experienced dining. You know,
Right.
they're the ones with the cheese wheel. Everyone goes there to get the carbonara, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people went there for the show, and then they realized, oh, this Italian food's great. And you know, they really opened the door for other spots like Lupessa, you know, at the Gateway.
Oh, yeah.
Great spot, beautiful environment. I mean, they have all four pillars.
Right? Yeah. They do it all.
Yes.
So talk to me about going back to how it started. I assume you were just kind of financing it yourself, right? Like out of pocket.
Yeah.
Was that less for like, it's obviously more frequent now that you're eating at these places
Yeah.
and doing content with all of this, but was it fairly infrequent at first?
Yeah,
Or
I would say maybe 1-2 posts a week.
Yeah.
So, you know, just like an average going out to eat. The thing is if I didn't like it, I didn't talk about it too. So
Right.
it's this, yeah, it was definitely a hard balance to really explore everywhere initially. Now, you know, we're creating content daily.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. And that's probably easier, right? That if restaurants are soliciting this, that you have the ability to eat at those places more often.
Yeah, and it's still a mix. You know, there's spots like Silverside. I came in here to eat.
Right.
You know, my
you chose
office is
it.
downtown. I came in here like, this is great.
Right.
I did a story about it, and the owner reached out to me and said, hey, we got a nice bump. We'd love to invite you in to explore the menu a little bit more. And I
Right.
said, okay, but I'm only going to talk about what I like.
Right.
If I don't like it, no hard feelings.
Yeah.
I'll still get your chopped cheese.
Yeah, fair enough. So at this point, you mentioned you've still got your day job.
Mhm.
Is there a point in the future where this just becomes a full-time thing?
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like
Or
if-
it's maybe more of a retirement thing. where
Yeah.
You're like, cool, once I'm done with that, like that will be my full-time.
I would love that. I think that would be a blast.
I love that because that obviously I think helps you keep it authentic, right? That you're not dependent on that. So if things slow down or whatever, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna endorse this place that I don't really want to endorse or whatever because I need that
Yeah,
coming
no.
in still.
I try to operate the blog at a net zero.
Okay.
So, you know, last year we left almost $22,000 in tips.
Oh wow.
So we really take care of the staff. I mean, because ultimately you think about like, one, I've never worked at a restaurant. I worked concessions at a movie theater when I was 15.
Yeah.
So I know a little tiny bit, but so much effort. They're here, you know, working long hours, and the amount of time that they put into it, I think people don't appreciate it enough. You know, they're
Right.
just upset their drink didn't get filled up instantly. I'm at like minimum 25%. But it's taking care of the people is really important.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's
Yeah.
amazing that you've done that amount in tips. That's great.
Yeah, it was wild.
So, with you first starting out and you kind of had to support it yourself financially,
Yeah.
I guess as a budgeting tip,
Yeah.
what would you recommend? Because some of these places are more expensive than others, right? Some
Yeah.
places are more affordable.
Yeah.
But I assume that you went to some places that were fairly expensive.
Yeah.
Did you have to save up for that? Like, what did the budgeting aspect of that look like?
Yeah.
And what would you recommend to people who are like, hey, I really want to try this place, but it's very expensive?
No. So look for, Groupon, stuff like that. I looked for. That's kind of faded away. But really, I leveraged like rewards, right? For me, I'm like a cashback point guru, right?
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. We love to hear that.
Yeah. But that's the best way to do it. I think for those more expensive dinners, you save up for like the anniversary, the birthday, you put some funds aside. Maybe you create like a savings account where you stash those dollars,
Right.
and it's your date night chip, your virtual tip jar.
Yeah. I've got to assume that would almost make it better, right? Like talking about experiences that if
Yeah.
you have a more expensive restaurant that you're really excited to go visit, but you're like, oh, that's expensive. Let's budget and save towards that. That by the time you hit that and you're like, okay, we can go.
We
Let's go
can
for
do
this
it.
special occasion.
And then you don't have to think about like, oh gosh, I'm gonna skip on desserts, right?
yeah.
Because you saved up. It's like a
or the
vacation
tip,
almost,
right? Like
yeah.
you're like, oh, I'm barely making it
Yeah.
to cover this. I can't cover the tip.
Yeah, 100%.
Maybe budgeting for that would
Yeah.
be a good idea.
Yeah.
So what does the future of SLC Foodie look like in your mind? Like
Yeah.
it sounds like stuff's still
Honestly,
popping up.
I just say yes. That's kind of been the whole journey, right? When I first started doing TV, it took me 6 months to like commit to it. I was so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. And then I realized it was just a conversation talking
Right.
about what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And so that was really, really fun. And radio, the same thing. I just never know what's gonna pop up. I mean, I would never in a million years think I'd be sitting here today on your podcast.
Right. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Chase, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been amazing getting to know all of your recommendations. Be sure to check out SLC Foodie and visit Silverside Deli here at Sugar House, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Guiding You Forward.